antenna. Works well. It is really sensitive. I was so impressed that when I received the offer to buy a quantity of these at a very reasonable low price, I just knew that it would be a blessing to you if I went for it, and I did, and we have them, and they arrived. Here they are. I'd be happy to send you one. The contribution you make doesn't have to be very large at all. Just remember the needs of Truth Radio when you ask for a little radio, and we'll be happy to send you one. As thanks for your support for Truth Radio. Our address is P.O. Box 344, zip code 93444.
William Rodriguez, the longtime employee of the World Trade Center in the last few days to exit the towers alive, describes a giant blast below his building.
And all of a sudden, we heard an explosion. It was a huge explosion that came from under my feet, meaning that it came from the sublevels between B2 and B3. And then there was a huge explosion across the building.
Hundreds of thousands of people had questions about the World Trade Center towers on 9/11. Those towers were not supported by falsehood. We know that much. The very fact that the government will not somehow come up with answers to those questions, even if they said, well, Al-Qaeda placed bombs in the buildings, there would be some kind of answer, wouldn't they? But they won't answer the questions, which means what? There's another question for you.
We're gonna rise to the sun.
When the school day is over, children still have a lot to do, including their homework. To make the most of their time, parents can help their kids develop smart and effective study habits. The American Academy of Pediatrics offers these tips. First, schedule plenty of time for homework. Allow children a consistent place to get their work done, whether it's in their room or somewhere else that's quiet where they won't be distracted. Speaking of distractions, the television and other electronics can really interrupt, so it's best to keep them off throughout the house during this time. But they may need to use the computer and internet for their assignments.
It's a fact of life that kids are using screens more for school.
So, supervise them. Also, be sure to let your young learners take a break from time to time to help prevent and alleviate eye, neck, and brain fatigue. Tips to make homework time a productive time. For today's Health Minute, I'm Martha Shade.
All right, now, hopefully we'll get that eliminated sometime in the future, but the YouTube is back up, the recording is back up, and my guest is Joshua Daniels. We're talking about omniarch.com, and
there's an S on the end, omniarchs.com.
Omniarchs.com. That's OMNIARCHS.com. And kind of a different way of looking at it. You know, this whole Jewish thing, we've got criminals, you put it right, there is Khazarian mafia, you know, and whoever we're sending $10 million a day to Israel, I don't see that being illegal, moral, or right for Americans. I pulled up...
No, it's unconstitutional. The government doesn't have the authority to give away our money.
And it's not just Jews. I mean, foreign aid, we're sending billions of dollars out to countries. I don't know what countries. I don't know where that money's going. I don't know whose pocket it's going in. It ain't right. It needs to stop immediately.
Yeah. If those countries are a mess, it's because they reject one of the core tenets of adulthood, like personal responsibility. In our version of Western civilization started in roughly the 1500s when William Tyndale and Martin Luther translated the Bible into English and German so Joe Schmo could read it. And what happened then was that the average European person who had been trained all his life to be a good Catholic and care what God thought actually got to see what God thought, and they started taking personal responsibility in a way that the Catholic Church had not wanted them to. And of course there were civil wars and so on, but this this civilization was created by the Protestant Reformation and its insistence on individual people answer directly to God for their actions, and we have these responsibilities. And it also, even Isaac Newton saw in the scriptures, he saw where it said, God said, before my word could pass away, the very laws of heaven and earth would pass away. And like many other people who read that verse, he said, wait, there are laws of heaven and earth? It doesn't rain at God's whim. The sun doesn't shine at God's whim. There's laws. And science was born out of that one question. Right? And so our world's been built on personal responsibility and the reliance that the laws of nature are solid. Okay? Look at any one of these countries where that's not happening, and you see somebody wants to be the daddy and everybody else to be little children who are dependent on him, and he gets rich off of them. And most of those little children are happy with that arrangement because they don't have any responsibility that way. And their country is a sewer, and it's always going to be a sewer until they change. And they're not going to change until somebody goes in there and seriously preaches Protestant Christianity. Whether you believe in it or not, it produces good things in a society. So,
well, I'm a little discouraged here. Very few people, maybe nobody's listening. It could be because I'm blocked in libraries. I'm blocked at Intel and Intuit. You can't go into the Veterans Hospital here and hear this show in the morning. It's blocked.
Wow.
I tried to go to tune in your show, Clay, but it says you're a porno site. No, not a porno site. No porno on there. Go home and listen. You can't walk into Office Depot and hook up to the Free American. They are afraid of this information. And it's not that, and this is the trick the Jews use, the Zionists use. Well, he's an anti-Semite. No, I'm not. And I'm not anti-government. I am anti-criminal. I am anti-mafia. I am anti-liars. I don't like liars. I don't like bullies, and I don't like tyrants. And so I want to fight against it, but nobody wants to stand beside me. Nobody wants to support. Nobody wants to send a donation. Oh, I can hear the show for free whenever I want. I can go to Facebook and hear the show. So nobody makes a donation. Can't have dental work. can't have any. Can't take a trip. Can't go here. Need filing fees for court cases. I don't have that.
Yeah. No, we faced this early on in the Sea Lions Foundation. This society is dying. This whole industrial civilization is dying. By the end of the century, there won't be 1 billion people on this planet, no matter what anybody does, anybody whatsoever. And in order to get through that population bottleneck, a person has to make changes. They have to decide, you know what, I am not going to be part of this avalanche, because when it gets, the ride is fun, but when it gets to the bottom of the mountain, the sudden stop at the end will kill me. So I'm going to change and do something different. We have been struggling with this from day one, and we finally found the thing that is getting people motivated, and showing them, look, there is a way that you can eliminate the problems you have now, not solve them. Okay, some things can't be solved. All right, if the bear is bigger and tougher than you, you can't solve the problem. But if you can get him to go hunt in a different valley, you've eliminated the problem. Okay, so these problems can be eliminated, and people they're in enough pain that they're willing to do something different. And we knew that would come, and we knew it would be a race between us to gather the people and resources and make things happen, and society to completely collapse. Who's going to win that race? We don't know. But we know we're out there running it. And we invite all of you listening to come join us. Here's how we're doing it. Just a brief commercial here, if I may.
Okay.
There are 20 billion pounds of plastic in the oceans, and they are killing the oceans, quite aside from Fukushima, which has already killed the North Pacific. Right? The oceans are one of the world's lungs. The forests are the other lung. The forests are in fairly good shape. The oceans are not. We're raising a fleet to clean the plastic out of the oceans. You can see this on terraformers.neoviking.com. You can read all about it. If you help us, you get a floating home that will go anywhere in the world. There's 6 feet of water and a decent breeze, including through a hurricane and up a river. It makes all its own electricity, all its own hot and cold pressure running water, processes all the sewage from everyone on board and puts out clean water. And the largest one has farm and garden space aboard to feed 10 people, including your pepper on your pepper steak and your morning coffee. And they all carry a car or truck in a garage on board and can back up to the beach and put down a ramp and launch and recover that car or truck. And they do all of this, you ready for this? Without a drop of fuel. You also get a cash payout. And I say cash payout because we're setting things up in such a way that you really don't need money while you're working with us full time. And some of these floating homes that we build will sell for cash, and you get a piece of that as profit sharing. And what we want to do, and we're not going to be hardcore about this, but what we want to do is hand you all of your profit sharing in one check when you launch your life yacht and you're done with your service to us. So you get out of there with 50, 100, 200,000, whatever the number is, and a brand new life yacht. And you've got your whole life ahead of you, and you no longer need a job. Okay? That's how we want to do it. But if you need money during the time while you're there, and a lot of people will, then we'll dip into profit sharing for that. Okay, all that'll do is lessen your check by a little bit. But that's what we're doing that people are getting behind. Our fundraising is working. We're starting to make headway. We could even break ground as early as January. That's our goal, to start our construction facility. And we don't need huge amounts for this. We can do it for under 10 million. About 9.6 is the number. All right. We'll start on the Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. Right? And our second location will be either Costa Rica or the Philippines, most likely. Right? We haven't set that, haven't decided yet. Right? And in return for a term of service, somebody gets one of these amazing life yachts and a cash payout. And you can start right now where you are at home, earning hours toward your life yacht. Contact us and fill out the membership agreement and send it in. The membership agreement does not bind you, it binds us. Right? And then you begin fundraising. That's the thing there is to do right now, is fundraising for everybody. Have garage sales and car washes and whatever. Right? If you live in territory in one of the 10 states where Mazio's Pizza has stores, they're a regional chain with 160, 170 stores in 10 states. We have these wonderful coupon books that we get from them that you can sell. Each coupon in it is for a whole item, not a % discount. Right? A whole pizza, a whole dessert, a whole buffet. Okay, and there's almost 50 bucks worth of food in them. They go for $5. People snap them right up. Right? If I just go out and walk around selling these things, I can bring in, just walking around talking to people, I can bring in 40 to 70 bucks an hour. Right? As a fundraiser, you get a share of that, right? Because we know you have day-to-day needs too, right? And we don't have anybody part-time yet. We have one guy who said, this is working out well enough. I'm going to see if I can get my boss to lay me off so I can also collect unemployment, but I want to go full-time with you guys. Right? So this is happening, right? It's at terraformers.neoviking.com. Now back to Omniarchy. I wanted to do an overview of Omniarchy.
By the way, send me that link up on Skype, and I will put it up on under this show, under your name on this show. And all people have to do is click on your name or right-click on your name and get the URL for the show on Blog Talk Radio.
Okay. There you go. I just sent it. Okay.
Yeah, I heard that.
All right. It's been said that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others we've ever tried. And the fact is, government does not work. It can't. And in 1 Samuel 5, the nation of Israel, the real nation of Israel, had 400 years in which they had no government whatsoever, and they never lost a war, and they never paid a tax. Right? But they told the prophet Samuel, hey, we're tired of this God person who's living in a tabernacle and only speaks through his priest. We want a king like everybody else. And God said to Samuel, you know, Samuel, people form governments to ensure their prosperity and lead them in their wars. What governments actually do is enslave the people to ensure the government's prosperity and draft the people's children to fight the government's wars. But it's all right. I'll give them a government. And there has been no government in history that has worked. The answer is government doesn't work. Somebody else making decisions for me puts me in a situation in which I don't want to be. Period. So we at the Sea Lions Foundation look back in history at the things that worked to deal with the problems that government claims it's there to deal with, and some of the things that it doesn't. We found that the local jury system, a standing jury, worked very well. This is when you got old enough that you weren't working the fields anymore and you had learned some wisdom, you'd spend your days sitting in the city gates. The elders would sit in the city gates, and they had two important features. One, they were a jury sitting right there ready to judge a case. Right? If I stole $10 from Bob, Bob goes to the elders at the city gates, and if I won't show up, they'll send some young muscle to drag me in, and then they'll say, so, what's with this $10? And they'll work it out. We'll be done in an hour or less. Okay? They also served as court clerks. The only marriage ceremony in the Bible does not involve any sort of government licensing. Boaz and Ruth went to the elders at the city gates and said, attention, I like this one. And the elders at the city gates said, okay, go for it. Have lots of kids. There was... Anyway, so the standing jury works well. Politicking and jury selection, to get on a jury, do not work well. They do not produce justice. So that's easy. Take all the available people who are qualified to be a juror, strike the names of those who have a conflict of interest, like you don't want me sitting on a jury to judge my brother, okay? And put the remaining names in a hat and draw out 12 names. There's your jury. Right? The one who's been a citizen the longest, that's your foreman or forewoman. They conduct the proceedings much like a judge would, and they don't have a vote in case unless there's a tie. That's simple. We boiled down government to 5 things that need to happen. And there's 2 or 3 in addition to this. There are not 5 things that need to happen, 5 offices that exist that need filled. And most people can do these, and almost anybody can. The first office that needs filled is counselor. You need somebody to sit on a council and look at the various issues and make decisions about how they should be handled. And that need is never going to go away just because the things are always changing. Right? Number 2, you need a clerk. This person establishes rights. I hear that music.
All right, we got a commercial break coming up here, and we will be right back with Joshua Daniels. I kind of like these commercial breaks. It's just enough time to warm up my coffee and whatever else needs to be done. We'll be right back.
Those of us who are concerned about the judiciary today and about the Constitution are sometimes arguing with each other about the issue of sovereignty. We, the people, some say, are sovereign. I am sovereign. individually, others say. And yet, there's another side to this coin. Are we under a nation of law or men? If men are sovereign, then I guess we need a king to be the sovereign person. But that's not the way we're structured. We're supposed to not be a nation under men. We're supposed to be a nation under law. What is the sovereign law? David Whitney has a magnificent lecture on this subject. It's less than an hour long. I'd love to send you a CD with his lecture. Please send for it. The Sovereignty CD. And write to us at Post Office Box 344, Nicomo, California, 93444. That's P.O. Box 344, Nicomo, California, 93444. We hear so much about it that after all, we got the idea that pollution is just everywhere, and in a certain sense it is. But there is also pollution that you can't see. One of our listeners, who is a prison guard, has been subjected to the pollution of high voltage electricity. It's called EMF radiation, and the guard station, you can see the picture of the guard station where he works. It is right next to some high voltage electrical lines, and it's impacting his health. So he's done a good deal of research on this subject, and he sent us a CD that will save you a lot of time on Google if you are concerned about this issue. Yes, it's a controversial issue, I know that, but it's something you really need to dig into and get the facts about. If you want to learn about EMF pollution, send for the CD on that subject when you write P.O. Box 344, Nicomo, California, 93444.
All right, we can lose the music here. I don't need the time on my show being wasted on elevator music.
Is there no way to mute that particular piece of the feed?
I have no idea here. This is only 2 days that Richard's been in New York, so I don't even know if he's got the time here. These commercials come up at 40, 20, and 40, but like I said, it's all kind of new to all of us, and I can't talk over it. I don't like to. And we will make some decisions whether or not we're going to stay on Truth Radio if we don't get this issue handled and taken care of. But let's give them one more minute here. To sign off or do something here, guys. Incredible. Okay.
Good grief.
My patience just ran out. Maybe when they realize I'm not on the air anymore, they'll fix that. So we'll check that. We'll check that in just a second here. No, now I wiped out everything, so hang on a minute. You still with me, Joshua?
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
All right, hang on a second. Let's see if we can get Joshua back up. Tried to eliminate Truth Radio and ended up eliminating all of them. But I got you back up. I got Blog Talk back up. And I'll see if we can bring a Truth Radio back up.
Huh. Are you sure you want to? How many listeners does it represent?
Not particularly. But
I mean, we've lost, what, 6 minutes to that stupid thing?
I guess so. All right, here's the new Truth Radio hotline. Let's test it.
Testing.
It's testing. It's connecting. There we go. All right. We've got Truth Radio back up. I hung up on Truth Radio because me and my guests aren't going to sit and listen to 5 minutes of mood music. So for you people that are handling that, Pastor Mossad and the Nick, that really sucked. And if it happens again, if we don't get that fixed, I will not be broadcasting on Truth Radio again. I've been broadcasting on Truth Radio for 20 years, but listening to 5 minutes of mood music in the middle of my show is more than my patience will handle. All right, Joshua, we're back on. And again, I understand that when you move to all the way across the country and you're trying to put something new together, there are glitches. We'll take that into account, and I don't hold grudges. But it's we've still got an hour and 15 minutes left, and so we can probably expect another commercial or two. But again, we'll see.
Okay. All right, we were talking about Omniarchy, and I had touched briefly on what a counselor does. The next office of government that you need, somebody has to be a clerk. And in Omniarchy, everybody has a record book and can be a clerk whenever you need them to. They just get paid for their time like anybody else. Clerks establish rights by recording facts. Right? In any jury proceeding, one of the jurors is the clerk. Or if that turns out to be too big a burden, they can appoint a clerk. Right? The jury itself can. The jury foreman or forewoman. And clerks just keep records. And in, like if I'm going to buy a car from you, and we have a paper title for it, not everything has a paper title or needs one, we go to anybody, the person next door, right? and say, hey, we're doing a transaction, we need a record of it. He says, sure. And he checks his watch. Okay, it is 11:02. We do our thing. When we're done, it's 11:06. All right, so one of us owes him for 4 minutes of his time at the standard rate. Government business happens at the rate the Finance Council determines to be the average of what any of us makes. In America right now, that would be like $26 an hour is the average when you count. Take all the income and divide it by all the adults. Right? And so, 26 bucks an hour, 4 minutes of that, what is that? 80 cents? Yeah. So the thing gets done. That person is going to mail in a copy of that. They're going to keep a copy in their book. We each get a copy, and a copy goes to the central office. Right? Same thing with the court records. Right? Copy goes to the central office. That's an easy office to fulfill, but it's very important. The next office you have to have for any society to work, any government to work, any let's call it governance to work, right, is the juror. We already talked a little bit about jurors, how when you've got an issue, you simply take the names of everybody around and strike out those with a conflict of interest, pull names out of a hat. There's your jurors. And let's see, we did counselor, clerk, juror. You need a sheriff. Sheriff is the person who keeps the peace and carries out court orders. If the keep the peace part is easy. If you see a fight going on, you don't call the police.
Now, excuse me for interrupting here, but what are we talking about? Are we talking about reforming our counties? Are we talking about using county sheriffs? There are a lot of county sheriffs that have signed a pledge to the sheriffs in the Constitutional Police and Sheriffs Association, started by Richard Max.
I'm talking about as every kid graduates high school, one of the last pieces that they study is they go to police academy, and when they graduate, they are qualified to carry the weapon that they're issued in high school, and the handcuffs, and the radio, and uniform, if anybody cares about uniforms, right? And from that day forward, anytime one of them needs money, they can call the local dispatch office and say, do you have any shifts available this week for patrol, or do you have any investigations we need carried out?
Hold on, I'm going to tell you, I got a guest here that I wanted to bring on. Let me bring him up in the middle of this.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hello, Jim Porter. How are you, sir?
Hello, Clayton. Good, and you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Just to make you aware, you're on my radio show with Joshua Daniels. I wanted to bring you up because I want you on my radio show at a very short time in the future. And so I got a hold of you and wanted to bring you up here and see if you'd like to do this.
Right now?
Yes, sir, we are right now. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell my audience what they could look forward to if I'm successful in talking you into coming on my radio show. It runs between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock Central Time. And you were recommended to me by Keith Broaders, who's been on it many times.
Okay. Now, I'm not set back or surprised, but I wasn't expecting this. So I guess for your listeners, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Jim Porter, and I actually live in the southwest corner of Colorado in a little town called Ridgeway. And I guess the contact with Clayton through Keith all stems around trying to find a way to expose government corruption. I had a message to contact Clayton yesterday, and due to electrical storms and everything else, I was just getting around to it this morning, and looks like I stumbled into a radio call.
You did, and but you know, a little informal, and I have Monday and Tuesday open to give you the full shot. All next week is open. You can basically pick any day but Friday. And I've been just for your information, I've been doing this radio show and publishing the Free American magazine for 20 years. Started the militia after what happened at Waco. I was just so outraged about that. And Joshua has been on my show many times over the years. We're all kind of dedicated to exposing corruption and finding answers. How do we fight this? Where does the corruption come from? Is it the mafia? Is it the Khazarian mafia? Is it...
It comes from the fact that the ordinary person does not have the authority to file a criminal charge and force it in front of a jury. Only a DA can do that, and he's a member of the club.
Yeah, one of my guests, his particular area of expertise is going into city councils, county councils, and pointing out when he comes on my show that the lawyers are working for a foreign country. It's the British Accredited Registry. It's the Bar Association. They're violating the real 13th Amendment and the Constitution.
I've got an awful lot of information on that subject matter. I think that might have been the reason that Keith was trying to get us together.
Yes, sir.
I'm almost stuck in the middle here, jumping into the middle of a conversation when nobody knows me, I guess. Didn't want to hijack your show.
That's all right.
But just for your listeners, I heard the comment about the bar.
Yes.
About the government attorneys, about the original 13th Amendment, which contained the penalty for accepting an office of profit, which was prohibited in our Constitution. Actually, it's prohibited in all versions of our Constitution, even found in the Articles of Confederation. Right now, I'm on a 13-year project. It had to do with a small property taking that had an extremely large value. And you process your way through the government. You start in the state courts, the federal courts. You can go to your local, I was in another town where this happened. You go to the city police, and you go to the county sheriff, and you go to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You can go through all of the hoops that the government has presented for the people. And at the end of the day, or at the end of about an 8-year pull on this, I realized the only people that were giving me trouble were the attorneys. And somebody made a comment. I'm not familiar with your callers and their names, but they spoke of the district attorneys, and they spoke of the inability of the people to bring criminal charges without basically the assistance or the actions of the district attorney and the state government. That is exactly our problem, and until the people find a way to expose it, remove it, we have no chance of ever turning anything around. And that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. I've got the documents on the DA. I've got the documents and know where the rest. I got a lot of documents on all of the DAs in Colorado. The few that I don't have, I know where they're at. And right now I'm working with the state law enforcement division known as the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. They're a division of the Department of Public Safety, and I have the documents that the executive director of the Department of Safety is a criminal. The proof is through government documents. Now, what I'm having a hard time doing is breaking through to the law enforcement to get them to arrest their boss along with all these other control people in the state. Married with that little project is all of my evidence with through the original 13th Amendment, called the Titles of Nobility Amendment. I got started on that a few years ago when I was making contact with researchers with the Barefoot Group.
All right, hold on just a second.
Yeah.
We've got a commercial here, one of our stations here. But tell you what, what about Monday? Next Monday. You got that day open?
My schedule is so up in the air, I have a hard time planning. That's the reason I was thinking when I called you. We could visit about your format and the information that I have, do a little screen sharing.
Okay, then call me after my show today. Or I will call you back after my show. How's that?
Is that going to be, what, in the next 20 minutes or
1 hour?
Hey, Jim. I don't know if you've heard this, but the problem is actually so bad that on at least one occasion I read about in the news, a grand jury handed down an indictment and the DA refused to act on it.
I've got the same thing with my particular case, and I can document it.
Yeah.
All right. I've cut that other commercial off so we can still talk.
Okay. I don't remember who I just was speaking to.
That's Josh. That's Joshua Daniels. Josh is.
Okay, Josh. One of the things, and I've got to go back into history of about 5 years. I presented the sexy documents to my local sheriff, who at the time was properly bonded. He was qualified to hold his position. Before the county commissioners took that away from him. And we don't have a state police in Colorado, so that he didn't look like he was showing favoritism to me or the government that had taken my property. He initiated an investigation at the state level through the CBI.
Right.
We don't have a state police where an individual can just go whine and complain and get something done. You got to go through your local law enforcement. You can actually do it through the district attorney. If they want to ask for a further investigation, they pass you along. And then you end up with a case number, and that's where I'm at today. Well, in about the third or fourth meeting with this special agent, her name is Rosa Perez, working out of Grand Junction, Colorado, she actually started disclosing to me the RICO violations being committed by government employees throughout the city, this county, and the state governments that I was battling and trying to expose. This investigation...
that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen under Omniarchy. No way.
Well,
that's what we're talking about is Omniarchy. That's Joshua Daniels' plan, and Joshua is out of Oklahoma.
Okay. Well, one of the things that happened is she was actually trying to do her job and didn't realize she was going to be reined in after 2 years. They produced this fantastic report. I don't remember how many times I traveled 100 miles, to make sure they understood timelines and how all the documents fit together, the names of the players. She went so far as to question people that had signed documents, and every one of them she questioned admitted they knew what they were doing was wrong when they did it. She puts this grandiose case together that ultimately would have reached to the governor's mansion. They surrendered this for prosecution to the district attorney, and he refused. He pulled the prosecutorial discretion card. Again, that was another case of the attorneys getting in the way. I now am in possession of the documents.
All right, Jim. I've got to give my guest his time, Josh's time back to him. What you can do is just send me an email. Tell me what day you want next week, and I'll give you the whole 2 hours. I want to talk about this. I want to have you on. I just don't want to be rude to my regularly scheduled guests.
Well, okay, let me give you an email, or we can talk in a little bit. I've got 13 years worth of documents. That's why I wanted to talk to you. So we'll visit, what, in an hour or so?
Yeah, tell you what, call me after 1 o'clock. I have to go to lunch. I do lunch out.
After 1 o'clock your time?
Yes, sir.
I'll do it.
And that's Central Time. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Joshua, my apologies.
Quite all right.
And wanted to schedule that guest. All right. So back to Omniarchy.
All right. Let's see. Well, let me touch on his situation just for a second here.
Okay.
A group of Omniarchs would handle that situation this way. The government steals some property, whoever steals some property from me, I go, let's say I live in a small town and there's a jury meets every Saturday night at the Elks Lodge, okay? And anybody who's got an issue can go before them, right? So I go Saturday night, say, hey, here's this huge, horrible thing that was done. And they say, yes, let's see your evidence, prove you owned the property before we send somebody to get it back. Okay, now, we want to hear the other side, so we're going to send an order to this, whoever took the property, let's call him Bob, to appear. Is next week good, or are you in a bigger hurry? No, next week's good. So they send an order to Bob to appear, and he's going to go down to the Elks Lodge Saturday night and explain himself. And the order tells him, here's what you're accused of, bring any documentation or witnesses that say that you had the right to do that. If he doesn't show, then they put out a call for sheriffs, right? And any person who lives in that area, they have to answer that call, and the jury will simply put names in a hat and pull out whatever number they think they need to arrest this guy. If we need a 20-person SWAT team, they're going to pull out 20 names, right? And Bob is going to be brought before them the next week, whether he likes it or not, right? So these ordinary citizens are going to go do this because they were trained for it before they got out of high school. So ordinary citizens go get Bob. And when they get him, they say, dead or alive, you're coming with us. Now, here's the situation. You want to take a minute and gather up your documents and make sure you've got the phone numbers of all your witnesses. You can call them while we drive, okay? And they will bring him before the jury. He'll answer the charge. If proceedings need to go further, there's more investigation that needs done, then the jury will, again, in the case of an investigation, because it's very time-consuming, they'll call for volunteers. They'll interview to see who has no conflict of interest. They don't want my friends in on it. They don't want Bob's friends in on it. All right? We want a totally disinterested party. Excuse me. And that person will then perform the investigation. If they need more people, they'll go back to the jury and say, I need somebody to help, or I need cooperation over in this other county over here. And the jury makes all that happen. Right? They simply order it. If somebody disobeys one of their orders, they can call on every adult in that county to enforce it at gunpoint, if necessary. Right? And then, if Bob is found guilty of having stolen the property, he has to pay me back twice the value of that property. There's no sentencing hearing. The penalty is set. If it can be paid for in cash, the penalty is twice the damage. Plus, Bob has to pay all the jurors, and the sheriff who arrested him, and the sheriff who investigated it for their time. If Bob doesn't have that much money, he'll be assigned a job, and his pay garnished, if he doesn't have a job. And he's free to, go home every day to his wife and kids, right? But if he skips out on the job, then he faces exile. We will physically dump him somewhere else without his money. His property will all be sold off to pay his debt. Right? If his wife wants to go with him, she can. If she doesn't, then we issue a divorce and she gets half the property if she was not involved in the crime, and the rest is sold off to pay his debt. And Bob is exiled. No need to do capital punishment, and no screwing around. If you won't fulfill the compact you signed up to fulfill, we're going to kick you the hell out. There's no reason to do some sort of gradual, the fines increase as it goes on, and eventually, it will really hurt you. It's going to be a $500,000 fine. No.
Where do you kick him to? This is does Bob become somebody else, the next county's problem, the next state's problem?
No. Everywhere that is governed by our omniarchy, we kick him the hell out of there. So let's say if this were the United States, we'd say, if we like Bob, we'll let him go to Canada where he speaks the language. If we don't, we'll pitch him over the Mexican border.
Okay.
Okay? Because letting people screw around with your life like that is just stupid. Don't let people make an agreement with you and then break it. That's, why would you do that? Especially when you were so merciful, all he had to do was show up every day to do his job. He got to keep part of the pay. He gets to go home to his wife and kids, and we don't have prisons. There's no need for him. And it's because he took something that didn't belong to him. Why would we tolerate any part of a person who isn't going to do the right thing? No matter how much we help him. Yeah, kick him out. Just kick him out. And so that's how omniarchy would handle the situation that Jim was just telling us about. That's not even tricky. But always in omniarchy, when you violate the compact that you signed with your own hot little hand, you face the armed might of the entire community. You do not face some special power group called City Hall or the police with everybody else standing on the sidelines. And your penalty was arrived at by a jury, and because we don't have different penalties for different things. There's only 3 penalties. All right, either you pay twice the damage, or we banish you, or exile and banishment are kind of 2 different things. If we, I'm sorry, I've confused myself here because we had 2 different trains of thought going. All right, if we wrote this assuming that any survivors of the next century would be at sea. Right? It's going to be that bad on land area, okay? And we're setting up to live at sea. So we have, at sea we have something called exile, where you're not part of our group anymore, and anybody who sees you can kill you, and they won't be held guilty. Right? But you can still be at sea. You just sail around somewhere else. Stay away from us. Keep a sharp eye on the horizon. If you see one of our ships, turn. Go somewhere else. Right? And then there's putting ashore, where we're going to take away your ship and everything. And if you are seen at sea at all, you can be killed. But we're going to put you ashore because you're that dangerous. And we reserve that for murderers, rapists, child molesters. Right? And the reason that we don't have capital punishment is because the American jury system used to be pretty good, right? But with all the DNA testing capacity we have now, we're finding that even that was killing the wrong guy a lot of times, putting the wrong guy in prison, right? I don't want anybody's blood on my hands that doesn't deserve it, right? So pretty much unless I face him in a stand-up fight, I don't think he ought to be killed. Or unless we have witnesses to say, yeah, I saw him do this.
It seems to me that this system would, we would be able to address one of my pet peeves, and that's laws against victimless crimes. I feel like we ought to abolish all laws against victimless crimes. If you want to sell your body, or you want to smoke pot, or you want to snort cocaine, you want to kill yourself with methamphetamine, go ahead. Just stay off my streets, stay out of my schools.
Now, you remember I've talked about the compact, this contract that you actually sign,
yes,
to become an omniarch, right? It can be written different ways, with different restrictions in it. All right. So in the one I've described, and the one that we've written up on omniarch.com, Okay, that's the one that there are several people already that have agreed to it, and it specifies that when we form a council to make some decisions, all right, let's say we have a traffic safety council, all right, they're going to write some traffic rules. All they can regulate is the relationship between us. They cannot regulate our persons or our property. So they can't tell me I have to have a seatbelt in my car or that I have to be wearing it. But they can tell me that if another Omniarch is going to get in that car, I have to make a seatbelt available to him or offer to let him drive. They can regulate the relationship the way we've written it. Right? So if they say, let's say the compact that you signed says, you know, your body is your own, you can do whatever you want to it. But if you're going to interact sexually with someone else, then, you know, if you're doing it for hire, then you have to use, you know, this level of protection to prevent spread of disease or whatever. You can write that into a compact and enforce it under omniarchy. Right? I say leave it out. Don't join an omniarchical group that wants any kind of control over your body. Okay? This is simply a system of governance. What's actually written in that compact by the people that you're contemplating joining is something you need to look over carefully. Because this system, I mean, if you join a group and the compact says that all the pretty people have to put out for the plain people on demand, okay, well, that's fine for you as long as you're in the ugly half, right? Yeah. So I mean, so just don't sign it. Go find a singing group. But yeah, victimless crimes. Every victimless crime is an attempt by the state to play nanny, to say I don't think you can take care of yourself, so I'm going to write this rule, and then we're going to punish you for not taking care of yourself, which is going to make you feel even worse and make the problem worse. But you know, I'm the mommy, so that's what I'm going to do. You know, we don't play that stupid game. Well, the only office left after sheriff is the soldier. Every society needs a military because there's always somebody willing to gang up and kill you and take your stuff. Different groups can do it different ways as long as you adhere to the compact. I believe the best way to do it is the way we've set it up, where you're going to spend a certain number of months every year on active duty in the military, wearing a uniform, drilling, training, preparing to shoot bad guys. One of the things that we did this for, one of the reasons we did this, is because with the technology of a life yacht, right, where you can grow all your own food, you make all your own electricity, hot and cold fresh running water, you don't need a job. And we want to structure our society so that if you do have a job, you're going to end up doing it maybe 6-7 months out of the year. We don't want a society of employees, and we don't want a society of people who are constantly just chasing after money. So by disconnecting money from whether or not you eat or sleep in the rain or stay warm, and by setting up commitments, time commitments that interrupt a steady pursuit of money, we think that we'll have a society of people who are much more mature. They have richer lives in every way, relationally, family, artistically, musically, right, in terms of travel. Oh yeah. I mean, just for one example, Indian silk is $5 a yard in India, last I checked, and $20 in Los Angeles. Right? So if you have a life yacht and you're just doing the India to Los Angeles run, carrying 1,000 yards of silk every time, right? That's 40 days in a row in which you are with your family all day, every day. And if you're with a group of 40 or 50 families that are doing that, well, you can get together and have school and everything else. Although, you know, I'm an advocate of homeschooling, so I say teach your own stinking kids. But yeah, you can have a small city that's moving about, and even though it's making money, you're not spending your time making money. You're making money, you spend some time in India buying the silk and loading it up, and then in Los Angeles selling it and unloading it. That's the only time you're spending on money. The rest of the time you're spending with family and friends. And when you want to break off that run and say, hey, let's go check out Antarctica. I hear it's nice this time of year. Right? You can do that because you don't need to make more money because you don't have more bills accruing. That makes sense?
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
how do we educate? Now, one of the things that's frustrating for me is doing this show, and even when I published the Free American, I had it on the shelves of Barnes & Noble. Somebody would come in and hide it.
Wow.
You need to feed your dogs or something.
No.
Let them have that postman. Let them have that postman for lunch. Anyway, the publishing the magazine was one thing. Doing the radio show, again, it's a little frustrating when you don't get any calls. Now, my phone number is up on my website, both my cellular and my Skype number, all up on my website, freeamerican.com. But they can go there and make a donation, and I am not getting the donations that I once had when I had the magazines in Barnes & Noble. I got more then. Right now, I'm not getting much. And I've always been able to make money at publishing when I could sell advertising. Now I'm put in a position of not being able to sell advertising because somebody, Zionist, Israelis, Mossad, somebody will call up the advertisers. Oh, you're advertising on the Free American? Well, we're going to tell all our neighbors not that you support Nazis, you support this or that, you support... Don't you know Clay's a Jew? He's just pretending to be a patriot. He's just, you know, something. I get the most ridiculous things. Oh, you know, he's selling that book, Mystery Babylon, to send money to a snitch named Huevos. No, don't know any snitch named Huevos. No, don't raise money for anybody but me. That's it. So. Yep. We're under full psychological attack, and I can see the same thing happening. Just happened to Allison Weir when she, that's if Americans knew what every American needs to know about Israel-Palestine. And you won't get this information from mainstream news. They won't tell you that 2,061 Palestinian children have been killed by Israelis since September 29, 2000. There's been Israeli children killed, 133, and 9,139 Palestinians have been killed since September 29th, along with 1,198 Israelis.
These attacks and disruptions that you've undergone are one of the things we hope to avoid by focusing on the terraformers. See, if people sign up to help clean up the ocean, and to get our smallest life yacht, you're going to spend 5 years doing that, okay? Not 5 years just cleaning the ocean, but a total of 5 years of service. And then they say, wow, I've been working with these life yachts all this time. This is really going to be great. I know how to live in one. I know how to sail it. I know how to do everything it can do. I'm so free now. I can do things like I can buy something here and sell it over there, and I don't have to go back to a job. I don't have a utility bill. And then we'll be teaching them all along as part of our regular training for them what omniarchy is, because that's how we're going to run our organization. And we'll say, look, this is, you don't have to go back to nations and put up with laws and taxes and police brutality and all that crap. You can you know, maybe we're inviting you to join our group, or you can form a group of your own. I mean, the Amish would like to, you know, we're going to be reaching out to them because this is just tailor-made for what the Ordnung is set up to do. And, you know, they would want to form their own group that runs their own way. You know, would you want to join that group? I wouldn't. Would they want to join mine? No. Should we coexist peacefully? Yes. All right. So by using the terraformers as a gateway, and it's something that nobody can object to. Who in the world could complain that we're going to go clean the oceans? Nobody. Nobody. And I can accomplish that goal and get people out of this society and into one where they have a chance at their family line making it through the population bottleneck ahead. And I don't ever have to say the word Jew. Except when a Jew tries to join the Partnership of Freeholders, and I say, sorry, we don't allow anyone in here who advocates childhood mutilation. Yeah? And that's not an anti-Jewish thing. That's anti-Muslim. Good grief, there's a bunch of people that are just weird about that kind of stuff. Like, sorry, anybody who says that we should mutilate our children or that they have the right to mutilate their children is not somebody that we're going to make common cause with. We're not letting you in. Go form your own damn group.
You are speaking of circumcision, and done when it's done by the rabbis, it is particularly gruesome, sick, and dangerous.
Yes. Yeah, well, the rabbis are, well, read the Old Testament, and then read the Talmud, particularly Book of Sanhedrin, section 55, folio B, where it says, Moses said that you shall not lie with a man as one lies with a woman, but it's okay to screw a boy as long as he's under 9 years old. Sanhedrin, section 55, folio B. Yeah, we don't want those people among us. And in our group, remember, you can do different groups the way you want. We don't have freedom of speech. Right? If you sign up and you encounter something that you didn't expect and you don't like the compact the way it is, right? We have a convention every however many years to address changes to the compact, but that's the only time you're allowed to complain about it. The rest of the time, all you're going to be doing is undermining morale, and that's not allowed. We will ride you out of town on a rail. Wait for convention. With convention, we can talk about anything you want to change. Right? Some groups will want to use omniarchy, and they want to have total freedom of speech. Okay, that's the society where somebody can walk up to you in public and say, wow, I would really like your wife to go down on me. That would be great. I'll give you $100. Most people would consider them fight words. I would. But if you're going to have total freedom of speech, that's one of the things you're signing up for. But if you try to regulate someone else's speech, now you got a fight on your hands. But with omniarchy, it's written right there in the compact what they can and can't talk about. And so by signing it, they're regulating their own speech and agreeing to have everyone else enforce that regulation. Huh. Now, one thing we haven't talked about is some of the big things that need to happen on a national scale in order for a society to grow. All right? One of the things you got to have is monetary policy. What is money? Where does it come from? How do you get it? Right? Another one is something as simple as scientific research. Scientific research is expensive enough that you pretty much need to fund it as a nation, or it's only going to get done for selfish means. And, I forgot, one of the provisions that we put in to our version of omniarchy is when you invent something and you get a patent for it, right, you cannot use the patent to keep it off the market. If you're not producing it and taking orders for it, then anybody else can do so as long as they pay you the royalty set by the patent council, whatever that is. Right? So, you know, if you invent the Geek carburetor, I can't buy it to keep it off the market. Because if I buy it and I don't produce it, then anybody else is allowed to as long as they pay me a royalty. Right? Now, finance. A lot of people don't understand about money. That the only value anything has is what someone else will give you for it. And in the final analysis, the thing that someone is giving you when they give you money is they're giving you time, whether it's time out of their life or time out of some other person's life to make that money. What you're getting is time. Every person has 24 hours every stinking day. Nobody has less than that. And if we base money on various things, let's say we make gold and silver money. That's a real popular idea right now. Okay, that means that the mining industry is the only industry authorized to create money. Well, why are we authorizing them to create money? And then eventually, when we've mined all the gold on the planet, no more money can be created. What do we do then? Then there's the problem of transport. Moving money around physically, tons of gold or silver or whatever. That's when you've got bandits, stealing the payroll, right? So the system that those of us who call ourselves the Partnership of Freeholders are setting up and will use, and we recommend everybody do the same thing, is the way to create money is for one of us to spend time working on a partnership project. A partnership project can be an investigation. Let's say we're investigating JFK. All right. Well, that may never bear fruit. All right. But then again, it may. Say it's some big, difficult investigation that needs done. If I sign up to spend time on that and I'm helping with it, I should get paid. That's got to come from somewhere.
Now, there is something out called Weir Bank, W-E...
Work hours.
A-R, and they're talking about money as time, that your time is worth so much, and that's kind of worked out in Ithaca, New York, where they issued Ithaca hours.
Yes. We're going to use a slight variation on that. And the simplest way that it happens is when you sign up to become a terraformer, you're going to work so many thousands of hours to get your life yacht, right? And we log all of those when you're doing fundraising. Every $50 you bring in counts as 1 hour towards your life yacht. We do that because, as we calculated it, when we do profit sharing, it's going to work out to right about $50 an hour unless our projections are just way off. Okay, so but when you're actually at the Freedom Fleet and you're building new life yachts, you're also doing other stuff. You get up in the morning and you tend the animals and the plants, and then some group of people go to the kitchen and they cook breakfast for everybody, which you can eat there or you can take back to your place and eat with your family. It's just more efficient to cook it as a large batch. So you might be teaching school for 1 or 2 hours or all day that day. Of course, you'll also be building life yachts. You might be standing fire watch at night. Right? Gotta have security guard. There might be a lot of things you might be doing, and all these things count toward your life yacht. But now let's say I want to take a few days off, and I've already scheduled shifts that I'm going to be working in these various things I just described. So I say, Clay, look, I schedule these shifts over here. I don't want to, there'll be a penalty if I don't show up or if I break them. Will you take these shifts for me? And you say, well, let's see, there's what? That's 8 hours of work? Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll do it for 8.5 hours. Right? So when you go do that work, 8 hours is going to be credited toward your life yacht. Half an hour, I'm going to take off of my book and put on yours. We'll go down to the office, or actually, we want to have a debit card system set up. That's not terribly expensive these days, where instead of dollars, you have hours, right? So I transfer a half an hour off of my books onto yours, so you're a half an hour closer to your life yacht, and I just paid you. The time was money, right? And that can be amplified as big as you want to get it. If I'm a shoemaker and I make let's say I work 10 hours a day and I make 10 pairs of shoes. I have an hour in each pair of shoes. And let's say that includes everything from making the leather and everything, all right? Well, I'm not going to sell that shoe for an hour. I'm going to sell the pair of shoes for 3 or 4 hours. Right? And the guy who can't make shoes at all, that is worth it. Absolutely worth it. Okay? Now, those times are unrealistic, really, because somebody, let's say I set up an assembly line shoe shop. All right, I've got 20 people working. They're not going to make 200 pairs of shoes a day. They're going to make closer to 800 or 1,000. Right? So I don't need to sell those shoes for 4 hours. I can sell them for 45 minutes each. Okay? Meaning if you're totally dirt broke and you need a pair of shoes, you can go down to Council Hall and see what shifts are available as a dispatcher for the sheriffs or standing watch, anything like that. Anybody's allowed to sign up for. And you can work your 6 hours and get 6 hours on your book so you can spend 45 minutes on a pair of shoes. It's an easy and not manipulable system, right? Which is one of the reasons it doesn't exist. Because the rich do not want systems to be easy or non-manipulable. And we are ruled by the wealthy. No doubt about it. Then, every year, you have a certain number of kids turning 18, and they're going to, or whatever age, okay, I advocate a little bit lower, but they're wanting to start their own household and engage in their own businesses. And there has to be enough money in circulation for them to do that. And so every year you have to have more money in circulation in order for it to keep the same value. The Finance Council every year will simply look at all the goods and services produced and how many people we have and how many people are turning 18, do a little bit of accounting magic and say, all right, we need to create this much more money this year in order to keep the value of our money the same. Most of that money will go into the military budget. A big chunk of it will go into the research budget. The rest of it gets paid out to all the freeholders who attended High Council. That's their pay for attending High Council. And so they get paid to actually come and make the big decisions about life. And in this fashion, money is put into circulation not by giving a bank the authority to create money and then loan it out at interest, but by directly giving it to the people who are doing the productive work and who need the capital to increase their productivity. When you go to our bank for a loan, we have one bank. It is not a competitive business. Finance is something you don't want people competing for. We have one bank. You go to the bank and you say, I'm a shoemaker and I make good shoes. All right, I need a few thousand hours to invest in equipment. I want to expand my shop and hire some people. And so I'll be able to cut my cost by this much and lower my price by this much. I'll be this much more competitive. So the bank assigns one of their investment guys to look over your business plan. Right? And the bank says, okay, we will loan you, or not loan, sorry, we will invest, and it only invests, it does not loan. Right? We will invest 20,000 hours in you. So you have that much time to spend on equipment and people and so on. And in return for that, we want 10% of your profits. We're going to buy 10% of you with an exception. A certain amount of the money that you make every month, let's see, you've got a family of 5, a mom and dad and 3 kids. All right, we normally exempt 1,000 hours per month per person. So your first 5,000 hours that you earn every month, that's expense. Right? We don't want any piece of that. On top of that, whatever you spend on leather and laces and eyelets and so on for your shoes, that's expense. Okay? Only what's above that is profit, and we're going to buy 10% of that. So I say, all right, done. I will do that. So they're the bank. They know what I spend on what. It's not like I have to do some sort of IRS return to explain what there is, and what the expenses were, what the profits were, and so on. And they're not going to just take the money out unless I authorize them to. Because they have their own accountants, and they want to help me succeed. So having one of their accountants do my books, they might charge me some money for that, but it's going to help me be a better businessman, and it's going to help them watch over their interest. And at any time, I can buy them back. For the 20,000 hours that I borrowed, pay that amount or pay part of that amount, right? And I can start buying back the 10% that I sold. Right? But it's up to me when to do that. That way nobody is ever calling me and saying, hey, you're late on your payment. Where is it? And if I shut down the shoe business and I go into the used car business, right? I sold that bank 10% of me. And just because the shoe business went away doesn't mean my obligation to the bank went away. If I make money in the used car business, again, with the same exemptions, right? My family is this much, and the cost of the cars that I buy is this much, and the cost of the office is this much, blah, blah, blah. Only the profit the bank gets 10% of, because they bought it. But I can buy it back. If I decide to quit doing anything for money, I mean, if I've got a life yacht, I can grow my own food, right? And it makes all its own utilities. The bank doesn't care. Because when I die, they've got a 20,000 hour claim on my estate. Right? We own 10% of his production. Okay? If I want to take a few years, say mom or dad gets sick, all right, I really don't have time for business. I'm taking care of mom or dad, and that's a year. The bank doesn't care. They are not calling me up and saying, where's our money? It's just like insurance with an actuarial table. They can say, okay, if a guy is this old with this family, over the next 30, 40 years, here's how much time he's going to take off, and here's how much money he's going to earn, and how much profit he's going to make. That tells them exactly how much to wisely invest. So we don't have debt collectors. We don't have debt. Among the partnership of freeholders, interest-bearing debt is strictly forbidden. You want to loan somebody money, that's fine, but you get back what you put in. Right? Because we keep the value of our money as steady as can be done. No inflation, no deflation. That's not allowed. That's one of the things where Congress absolutely ignores the Constitution. They are required to regulate the value of money. Regulate means force it to obey a rule. They don't do that. So with a bank that invests in you rather than lending to you, and we only have one bank, because it's not a for-profit operation. It shouldn't be a for-profit operation, right? Putting capital into play is a national concern. So that should not be a for-profit operation.
What about the Federal Reserve scam, issuing dollars, printing dollars, and then charging us interest for it?
Oh, just
what do we do about this script that the Federal Reserve is calling money, but really isn't?
I don't believe you can do anything. I see the Patriot movement fighting on many fronts and winning on none of them. I don't think there's anything you can do other than start a completely different society out of their sphere of control. And the place that they're weakest and they're going to get weaker is at sea. And they're going to get weaker because their very system requires that each generation be less emotionally mature, less able to accept responsibility than the one before. And the thing you have to be to go to sea and survive is grown up. You got to be emotionally mature. You got to be ready to handle it. This is why we saw in the Soviet era, they had some great equipment, but their Navy never did anything. The communist system, which is taking over the world, doesn't let ordinary men and women grow all the way up. It wants them just mature enough to operate as a slave. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd love to offer you some hope, but our plan is to become like the globalists. We'll be operating in between the nations, moving here and there, We'll flag our vessels wherever is convenient, just like all the globalists do. Whatever nation is the most convenient to flag their vessel and the best tax laws or whatever, that's where they flag it. And eventually, if the United Nations still exists when we're that big, then we'll go to the United Nations and say, hey, we are a nation. Acknowledge that. But we know that the land-based society is going to dwindle over the next 100 years to where it's almost nothing. Isaiah the prophet predicted in chapter 24, there will come a time when there are few men left and those are burnt. And then will come people from the sea singing the praises of God. Right? I think he's talking about the descendants of the sea lions. It's an opinion. But as we go out to sea, I mean, we won't even have trouble mining. There are 750 places that we know of in the ocean where the undersea mountain comes to within 50 yards of the surface. I mean, technologically, that's not even a challenge to sink 50 feet of water and start mining. We can do that. Yeah. And so, but the real reason that we'll grow is because our people will be happy. They will enjoy what they do. They also will have the challenges that forced Northern Europe to become technological and industrial. Life at sea is not easy. I'm not talking about sitting on a beach in Hawaii. That's when you just sit around and get fat and then make war with the king in the next valley over, which is what they did until the white boys got there. Right? I'm talking about a life that has lots of hardship and lots of challenge, but also great reward. So that's why I believe our people will grow and grow and grow at sea. I think that's humanity's next step. We have to learn to live at sea, or we'll never learn to live in space. If we can't live at sea, we can't live in space, period. And after the sea, once we've got floating colonies, I envision one about half-mile long, quarter-mile wide, with a big lagoon in the middle, and a net underneath it to keep the predators away, so that we have our own fish that we farm in the lagoon, right? And vessels that want to come to this floating colony, they'll sail in through a channel and they'll come into the lagoon and dock, where they'll be protected from heavy weather. That's not even technically challenging to build, right? And then from there, we'll move up into the sky. It's my hope, and it's what I want to preach to all the kids that we raise and all the people who join us, is that because we can live without ever disturbing the earth, and we can have all the technology we want without ever polluting a thing, we should. We just have to stop those who are greedy, who say, no, I don't want to spend $20 million cleaning up the mess I made strip mining that mountain. I want to take that money and blow it on, I don't know, liquor and loose women. We, the rest of us, have to have the power to say, no, you're going to clean it up, or we're going to take the money from you and we'll clean it up and we'll pay ourselves to do it. Which one do you want to do? Huh? And then we'll banish you for refusing a jury order. Yeah. This can be done. It doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't. But the system that you're in, I don't believe for a minute it can be fixed. It's so broke that fixing it from within is just no. Not going to happen. Not in this life, not the next. No, but you can build something new. And you have to do it in a way so that they don't see you coming. And the terraformers is a legitimate enterprise to clean the oceans, but it also will serve to mask what we're doing so that they don't realize that we're doing something new. By the time they realize that they don't like the fact that there are free people floating around doing what the heck they want and going from nation to nation and not beholden to any nation, will be too powerful for them to do anything about.
Well, it sounds like a good subject material for my next science fiction book, my short story. I think I'm going to start writing and looking to write for some current magazines. I just got to go out and do a little bit of research here.
Okay. What kind of a story are you thinking of writing? A war, a romance, exploration?
Well, kind of taking what's happening now, translating it, taking everything you just talked about, and carrying it to a logical conclusion. This is what you could build. I mean, a lot of things. I was just got a video in from Netflix. Jules Verne's talking about Jules Verne. Now, Jules Verne wrote about atomic submarines. He wrote The Mysterious Island. Wrote a lot of books that were science fiction back then. They're no longer science fiction. And what I wrote about legal pot 45 years ago is not science fiction any longer either.
Right.
And what I tried to show is here's what a society could be like if you abolish the laws against victimless crimes. I want to expand on that.
Okay. Well, in the Partnership of Freeholders, which, remember, that's just one way that you can use omniarchy to be free from a government. We have things like, since you're doing military service every year, right, we can't tell you what to do with your body outside that time. So you can smoke pot or whatever. We can tell you when you present yourself for military service, you need to be at a certain level of fitness, or we're going to put you on a corrective action program in the service, and do this 2, 3, 4 times or whatever, and then you're going to have a problem. Okay, so some people. I mean, shoot, John Nutter's been smoking 45 years and is showing no ill effects. I've been smoking 30 years. It's time to quit. So different people's bodies handle different things different ways. You can't make a blanket rule, but you can say, if you're going to do this, here's what you got to bring us every year. Here's what you got to bring to the table. How you do that and what you do other than that, up to you. Yeah. Now you could probably write a rockin' war story. I mean, let's say at the point when there are 10 or 20 million of us moving about the world's sea lanes, and we're farming the ocean and we're tending the fish schools, okay? Even to the point where we tattoo an ID number on each of the whales and dolphins, maybe put a little chip on them so we know where they are, right? And the Japanese decide they're going to kill one of our whales, okay? Because they're just sick about that. I don't know why they're psychotic about killing whales, but they want to do that. So big fight develops. And other nations get into it. Like, oh no, you don't shoot up the ships of a sovereign nation. Like, hell, we don't. This is our ocean, not yours. You come out here as our guest. You misbehave. We ask you to stop nicely, and then if you don't, we'll poke a hole in your boat. So, I mean, we could see a full-scale fight develop out of that. It would be easy to take, say, a concrete cube, shape it like a cargo container, right? That would float about 8 or 9, about 7.5 feet deep in the water. I mean, you'd barely see the top of it. Okay? If we simply make a few thousand of those and use submarines to position them, we could actually build a dam around the mouth of the Yalu River. Say, hey, China, you're not getting any ships in or out of this river until you end the pollution. We're tired of this sewer flowing into our ocean and killing our fish. And then, of course, you got a great big fight with China over that. High drama, good story. Yeah. But have an organized military on our side, not a bunch of goofballs who are trying to save the world's environment with violent actions. Have a diplomatic corps that goes to the Chinese government and says, we got a problem with this, we need to fix it. Even, if they say, well, so-and-so and such are making too much money off of the polluting industries, Like, well, give us their address. We'll have them assassinated. And we'll keep assassinating whoever replaces him until he decides to play ball and end the pollution. I mean, we don't mind that you're mining and manufacturing. We just want the pollution to stop. That might be a fun story. Assassination hit. Sanctioned by the Chinese government because the government realizes they're less powerful than the billionaires. and they can't stop the billionaires. China has recognized they've got a huge pollution problem. I forget the guy's name. He made a speech back in, it's been a long time, 03, 04, where he said, we can no longer drill a well and drink the water out of it without filtering it first. Our land is so polluted. I mean, they're realizing, this has got to change, but the people who are making big bucks off it are stubbornly resisting that change. So,
the multinational corporations are the bad guys. In today's world, they will be the bad guys in my series, in my short stories.
Now, I've suspected for a long time that if you send hit squads after the leaders of those corporations, and on the body you leave a list of the crimes that they committed that you're punishing them for, or well, that you're removing them from society for, the other board members pretty quickly would get the idea. And, the chairman and the directors, they'd figure it out pretty quick. And when they realize they can't protect themselves, they might actually change their ways. Maybe.
You think?
Yeah, well, I think the ones that are in charge won't change their ways. I think they'll just get killed. And the newcomer says, you know what? Stapled to his body was a list of all the reasons he got killed. Maybe I just won't do those things. How about that?
We can certainly try that. All right, what do we got here? We're out of time here. Joshua, thanks. It's a great show. It'll be up on Facebook. It'll be up on freeamerican.com here in just a few minutes here. And
awesome.
Folks, if you want to support this, make a donation, freeamerican.com. Would certainly be appreciated.
Terraformers.
Yes, and I've got that link up, and I'll talk to you more about that a little bit later.
All right. I'm booked up until after about 1 Central Time.
All right. What about this pizza parlor? Is that just up in Oklahoma? That changed?
No. It's in 10 states. It's got a big presence in Texas. It's just not out in Big Springs where you are.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things we're about to start doing is just contacting companies and say, hey, let me talk to your benefits administrator. We think you should buy one of these for every employee because, it'd be a great back-to-school thing. Kids, they're eating out more, they're spending more money, save them a buck. So we sell them to a whole company at a time. That's what we're about to start doing.
All right. Keep me informed. Okay. I'll target you later. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one. Bye-bye.